Good evening. The Dolores County Broadcasting Network presents the DCTV 4-H Evening News Program for March 16th. Goodness, we're halfway through March. Kind of acting like a lion out there. Our camera person tonight is me. Video sound engineer and producer, me. Teleprompter and prompter, Sandy. News anchor and meteorologist, Nolan. This is your news director, Lynn. And now, the news.
Welcome to the DCTV 4-H Continuing News Show. Help us keep our news show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-4109. That's 970-677-4109. Now over the COVID statistics in Colorado. 444,390 COVID-19 cases, 24,233 hospitalized, 6,115 deaths, 4,082 outbreaks of residential and non-hospital healthcare facilities. All numbers are up, but are in lesser amounts. In La Plata County, 3,163 cases and 37 deaths. Montezuma County, 1,730 cases and 14 deaths. Archuleta County, 703 cases and 1 death. Dolores County, 68 cases. San Juan County, 43 cases. San Miguel County, 838 cases. San Juan County, New Mexico, 13,615 cases and 451 deaths. Practice social distancing when possible and covering your nose with a mask. Call our county nurse to see when you can get on the list for a vaccination. Hello, I'm with our first story from the Durango Herald. Extraterrestrials pay visit to La Plata County. Dear Action Line, can you explain this crop circle near Ignacio? Aliens ate my Buick. Dear Buick, this sets a personal Action Line record for shortest question, so thanks and congratulations. Some other strange things are about to happen as we get into this week's Action Line, not least of which is that Christo will be mentioned twice. A conspiracy, a coincidence? That Christo, an obscure artist who decorated landscapes, would come up twice in one column seems preposterous. Yeah, so what is the story on these crop circles just north of Ignacio? We all know that crop circles, the ones that mysteriously pop up overnight, often in cornfields, are made by vastly superior beings from the planet Beldar. Sure, some scientists will tell you that these often very intricate designs can be explained away in natural and human cases. Action Line prefers not to be blinded with science. But in this case, someone is taking credit for the crop circles, which he refers to as snow spirals, so with a bit of skepticism, we'll go along with what he says. The snow spiral is on the field owned by Roger Dale, a local glass blower and river guide. I have always enjoyed crop circles and artists that use the materials that are provided by nature, rocks, leaves, and in this case snow, Dale said. Artists like Goldsworthy, Smithson, and Christo. There's that name. Dale said he was out feeding the cattle when he and his wife, Sindel, own and began clearing snow in the pasture to help the cattle get to and from the creek. He drove his tractor to the middle of the field, dropped the blade, and around he went. I decided to have some fun and create something that would make people smile, forget about the virus and the political storm we were living with, Dale said. The idea to create a spiral like the ones the early Puebloan cultures carved into rocks here in the Southwest. The next day, I climbed onto the roof of our barn and took the photo and posted it on social media. It has put a smile on lots of people's faces this last week. Your Action Line. On U.S. Highway 160 west of Hesperus between mileposts 68 and 70, there are short lengths of snow fence placed diagonally to the highway. Are these CDOT's experimental design gone awry? Yeah. These sections do not keep the snow off the highway, or are they experiments in art, not catching the drift? Dear Drift, this question is giving Action Line flashbacks of those whiteouts when you can't see where you are on the road, but you don't want to stop because someone might rear-end you. Palms are just sweating thinking about it. This fencing may not work all the time, but hopefully there are many occasions when it will help drivers avoid these and other scary situations. The fencing near the Montoya's ranch has been in place for around a decade, said Craig McCall, Regional Maintenance Supervisor for the Colorado Department of Transportation. It is designed to prevent snow from accumulating on the highway, thus making the driving conditions safer and saving CDOT time and money. CDOT can control many things, but McCall was forced to admit that it can't control the path of the breeze. So there are times when Mother Nature decides to blow her winds in varying directions, and the fencing may not help as much, McCall said. But when her winter gales are blowing just right, the wind pushes the snow up against the fence, stopping it from making its way to the highway, and that's exactly what we want. As far as artwork, CDOT is categorically denying any involvement. If CDOT had the time and resources for our installations, he said, we had no hand in the sleek monolith in the Utah desert for the miles of fabric planned to someday suspend over the Arkansas River. We didn't even have anything to do with the infamous arc of history at the junction of US 116-550. Miles of fabric, Christo again. For those not keeping track, Christo tried for decades but never could get permission to suspend silvery fabric over the Arkansas River between Salida and Canyon City. We true Christo fans know that he died recently, May 2020, 84. Snow fences are in place all over the state, and some are likely more effective than others. Some are just a few feet high, while others tower to 20 feet high, like the mega fencing near Fairplay, McCall pointed out. Action Line will vouch from plenty of winter trips to the Denver area that stretch to the south of Fairplay on U.S. Highway 285 is one of the most desolate, chilly, and windblown area anywhere. Anybody else up for a hot cup of tea? The story is taken from the Smithsonian Magazine. This insect has the only mechanical gears ever found in nature. To the best of our knowledge, the mechanical gear evenly sized cut teeth into different rotating surfaces to lock them together as they turn was invented by sometime around 300 BCE by Greek mechanics who lived in Alexandria. In the century since, the simple concept has become a keystone of modern technology, enabling all sorts of machinery and vehicles, including cars and bicycles. As it turns out, though, a 3 millimeter long hopping insect known as Isius Cleopatratus beat us to this invention. Malcolm Burrows and Gregory Sutton, a pair of biologists from the University in Cambridge in the UK, discovered that juveniles of the species have an intricate gearing system that locks their back legs together, allowing both appendages to rotate at the exact same instant, causing the tiny creatures jumping forward. The finding, which was published in Science, is believed to be the first functional gearing system ever discovered in nature. Insects from the Issus genus, which are commonly called plant hoppers, are found throughout Europe and North Africa. Burrows and Suttons used electron microscopes and high-speed video capture to discover the existence of the gearing and figure out its exact function. The reason for the gearing, they say, is coordination. To jump, both the insect's hind legs must push forward at the exact same time. Because they both swing laterally, if one were extended a fraction of a second earlier than the other, it'd push the insect off course to the right or to the left instead of jumping straight forward. The gearing is an elegant solution. The researchers' high-speed videos showed that the creatures, who jumped at speed as high as 8.7 miles per hour, cocked their back legs in a jumping position, then pushed forward, with each moving within 30 microseconds. So that's 30 millionths of a second of the other. The finely toothed gears in their legs allow this to happen. In Issus, the skeleton is used to solve a complex problem that the brain and nervous system can't, Burrows said in a press statement. The gears are locked at the top of the insect's hind legs on segments known as the trochanterium and include 10 to 12 tapered teeth, each about 80 micrometers wide. All in the Issus hoppers studied, the same number of teeth were present on each hind leg, and the gears locked together neatly. The teeth even have filleted curves at the base, a design incorporated into human-made mechanical gears because it reduces wear over time. To confirm that gears performed this function, the researchers performed a neat, albeit morbid, trick with some dead Issus. They manually cocked their legs back in a jumping position, then electronically stimulated the main jumping muscle in one leg so that the leg extended. Because it was rotationally locked by the gears, the other non-stimulated leg moved as well, and the dead insect jumped forward. The main mystery is the fact that adults of the same insect species don't have any gear. As the juveniles grow up and their skin molts away, they fail to regrow these gear teeth, and the adult legs are synchronized by an alternate mechanism, a series of protrusions extended from both hind legs and push the other leg into action. Burrows and Sutton hypothesized that this could be explained by the fragility of the gearing. If one tooth breaks, it limits the effectiveness of the design. This isn't such a big problem for juveniles who repeatedly molt and grow new gears before adulthood, but for the mature Issus, replacing the teeth would be impossible, hence the alternate arrangement. There have been gear-like structures previously found on other animals like the spiny turtle or the wheel bug, but they're purely ornamental. This seems to be the first natural design that mechanically functions like our geared systems. We usually think of gears as something that we see in human-designed machinery, but we found that it is only because we didn't look hard enough, Sutton said. These gears are designed representing high-speed and precision machinery for synchronization in the animal world. Story 3 is from the Durango Herald. Pandemic shapes trial of Minneapolis ex-cop and Floyd's death. Because the trial of former Minneapolis police officer charged with George Floyd's death is being held during the coronavirus pandemic, the courtroom has overhauled for safety. Gone are the traditional jury box and gallery, replaced with widely spaced seats and desks for a limited contingent of attorneys, jurors, and media. Plexiglass barriers and hand sanitizer are everywhere, and the participants even the judge wear masks. We are gradually increasing in-person activities in court facilities in a safe and responsible manner that will allow the courts to fulfill our constitutional obligation, while we continue to do all that we can do to protect the public health and safety. Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter. Floyd was declared dead May 25th after Chauvin, who is white, pressed his knee against the black man's neck for about 9 minutes, holding his position even after Floyd went limp. Floyd's death sparked sometimes violent protests in Minneapolis and beyond, leading to a nationwide reckoning on race in one of the highest-profile trials of a police officer in U.S. history. Citing the need to comply with social distancing and other safety rules, Hennepin County District Judge Peter Cahill separated Chauvin's case from that of other 3 ex-officers charged with Floyd's death, who are set for trial in August, among other things. Cahill concluded in January no courtroom in the building was big enough to safely accommodate 4 defense teams and the prosecution team all at once. Prosecutors tried unsuccessfully to persuade Cahill to reconsider his decision to hold 2 trials. They argued instead for holding a single joint trial sometime this summer, when they hoped enough Minnesotans would have been vaccinated to reduce the risk of any participants getting COVID-19. They submitted an affidavit from prominent University of Minnesota epidemiologist Michael Osterholm, who warned that it would be extremely dangerous to try Chauvin this month, with potentially catastrophic consequences for the public health. He expressed fear that it would become a super spreader event, given the large number of protesters and out-of-town journalists it was likely to draw, especially if more contagious coronavirus variants cause a spike in cases. The 18th floor courtroom Cahill burrowed is the largest in the Hennepin County Government Center, and it has been overhauled for the purposes of Chauvin's trial. The seat capacity was sharply reduced in the remodeling. The theater-style seating in what was the gallery was removed to create space. Tall plexiglass dividers separate the judge and the court staff from the limited number of other people in the courtroom. Clear plastic sheets also run down the middle of the defense and prosecution tables. When Chauvin and defense attorney Nick Nelson want to confer, they need to lean back a bit. The normal jury box has been replaced with 2 rows of office chairs spaced out with small desks, but there is no space for the general public. Seats are reserved in the back for just 1 Floyd family member and just 1 Chauvin family member. Only 2 pool reporters are allowed in at a time, plus a member of the court TV team that's providing the feed. The constitutional requirements for public trial is being satisfied by allowing gavel-to-gavel TV coverage, which is rare in Minnesota courts. Cahill has taken pains to keep the identities of the potential jurors secret, prohibiting them from being shown on camera. But he got a surprise Tuesday when a retired judge watching from home texted him to let him know that he could see a reflection of juror number 1 in one of the plexiglass panels. The problem was quickly fixed. Everyone in the courtroom is required to wear a face mask. The main exceptions are when attorneys speak at the podium, which has plastic planes on 3 sides, and when potential jurors respond to questions. When the judge and the attorneys need to conduct a sidebar discussion, they don't huddle around the judge benches like they normally would. Instead, they put on a headset so they can hash out legal or procedural issues out of earshot of jurors. Only 4 prosecutors and 2 defensive attorneys are in a court at any given time. The rest of their teams must participate remotely. So must the defense teams for the 3 other ex-officers facing trial this summer. Story 4 is from the Denver Post. An 81-year-old Boulder woman is reunited with Norman Rockwell painting she remodeled for as a teen. Charlotte Sorensen was riffling through a newspaper one morning in December when she recognized someone in a gallery advertisement for a Norman Rockwell painting that she had not seen in years herself. There she was, a teenager in a cluster of schoolmates in graduation day caps and gowns. Rockwell had called the painting Bright Future for Banking. Sorensen, who is 81 and lives in Boulder, had posed for Rockwell when she was a 15-year-old high school sophomore in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, the picture postcard town in the Berkshires where he lived and worked from 1953 until his death in 1978. As a star illustrator for the Saturday Evening Post, he was known for summoning his neighbors into his studio to be models, dozens over the years. They were the faces in the quintessentially American images that the public loved but critics disdained. Sometimes he supplied the accessories at his easel long after his subjects had left the studio, but for Bright Future, Sorensen said he had a cap and gown at the ready, even though he did not tell her what the painting would be about. Unlike famous Rockwell paintings such as The Problems We All Live In, with its civil rights theme, or The Runaways, showing a police officer sitting at a lunch counter with a little boy who had run away from home, Bright Future had an unusual history. It was almost thrown out in the trash. The gallery owner selling the painting said it had been salvaged by a man walking down a Manhattan street in New York a few years after it had appeared in the magazine, with which Rockwell was closely identified for nearly 50 years. The gallery owner, William Raw of MS Raw Antiques in New Orleans, said he had acquired the painting from two brothers who had inherited it from their father's death recently. Now in their 60s and living in the New York area, they did not want to be identified or interviewed, he said. The story, he said, they had told sounded like a scene from a Rockwell painting. Their father, walking along the street in Manhattan, had watched it as a janitor from an office building heaved trash containers toward the curb. The men's father spotted the painting and asked if he could have it. The original work, signed by Rockwell, ended up in the wall in the older son's bedroom, Raw said. While Raw did not say how much he paid for the painting, he said that the two sons had put it up for sale because neither son would pay the other's share. Raw's price for it is $885,000. Rockwell's paintings have climbed in value in the 2000s. Saying Grace, 1951, sold for $46 million at Sotheby's in 2013, more than double the pre-sale estimate. That topped Breaking Home Ties, which had sold for $15.4 million at Sotheby's in 2006. The Gossips, a montage of friends, neighbors, and Rockwell himself, went for $8.45 million at the 2013 auction, with Saying Grace in 2017. Rockwell's Two Plumbers brought in $1.9 million. Rockwell's paintings told stories, although he left it to the viewer to fill the details in images such as the one of the bride trying on a wedding dress or the one of the boy and his mother saying grace in a crowded restaurant. His paintings were immensely popular with the Saturday Evening Post subscribers, but reviewers complained that they were tristly. After Rockwell painted his series, The Four Freedoms, at a Time magazine review in 1943, said he would probably be incapable of portraying a really evil human being, or even a really complex one, perhaps even a real one. The people he painted were real, though. Like Sorensen and Bright Future, many lived in or near Stockbridge. William J. Oppenheim, the police chief in Stockbridge, posed for Rockwell several times, although he was better known as Officer Obie in Arlo Guthrie's Vietnam-era ballad Alice's Restaurant Massacre, because he has arrested Guthrie for littering. People who are Rockwell's models have a sense of a little bit of celebrity, said Stephanie Plunkett, deputy director and chief curator of the Norman Rockwell Museum in that town. Some of them, especially if they were children, didn't recognize what was being asked of them. It wasn't until they were adults that they realized what they had done was so interesting and important. That applied to Sorensen. It was quite common to be sitting somewhere or walking somewhere and he would spot you, she said, and in his mind he had some painting that he was thinking of, so he would ask you or send somebody to ask you if you'd come up to his studio. Rockwell's studio on Main Street had a plate glass window and was nicely situated for people watching. Sorensen remembers that it was across the street from one important local hub, the drugstore, and next to another, the Western Union office. Sorensen believes that the request from Rockwell came in 1954 when she was in 10th grade at the Stockbridge Plain School. After classes let out for the day, she said the fun thing was to walk down the street and go to the drugstore. You'd go in and you'd either sit in a booth and order a root beer float or sit in a stool at the counter on one of those wonderful stools that twirled around. She does not remember whom Rockwell sent to invite her to go across the street to his studio, nor does she remember much about the modeling session. He must have put that hat on my head and taken pictures, she said, and then I probably went back to twirling on the stool in the drugstore and sipping on my root beer float, and I didn't think anything more of it. She said he gave his models a Coca-Cola and paid them typically $5 to $10 for a session that lasted about 20 minutes. Many of them say, "I wish I hadn't crashed the check." She said that fee was more than Rockwell's son Peter, who died last year at 83, said he had received. "I got paid $1 an hour, and people outside my family got $5, which I thought was terribly unfair," he said in 1993. Rockwell painted more than 300 covers for the Saturday Evening's Post, but Bright Future was painted for an advertisement for a bank, although it appeared in the 1955 magazine. The following are the dumb laws in the world. It is illegal to discharge a firearm from a public highway. Ugly men are not allowed to go in the city before dark. Okay. Though you may spit on a city road, spitting on city sidewalks is prohibited, as it should be. It is illegal to call a child Ziberdaka. Okay. Non-prescriptive sunglasses, hats, clothing that exposes armpit, a bare back or midriff, see-through clothing, and accessories with protruding metal spikes are not to be worn in school. Okay. You are not allowed to wash your car in the street or park your car in a way that it blocks your own driveway. It's your own property. No one may eat ice cream on the sidewalk. It is illegal to lead an animal on a sidewalk. New Yorkers cannot dissolve a marriage for irreconcilable differences unless they both agree to it. Now for our weather report. Our current weather data comes from the DCTV weather station located in the beautiful downtown Dove Creek. The current temperature is 43 degrees. Today's high was 45 degrees. The low was 31 degrees. The barometer is at 29.6 and steady. Humidity is 52%. Wind is from 1 to 3 from the northeast. Gusts been up to 21 miles per hour. There were 0.0307 inch of moisture measured by the DCT weather station today. Moisture for this month is 64.6407 inch. Moisture accumulation for the year is 1.7 inches. From the National Weather Service, here is the big map. All of the West Coast states are clear. Oregon and Washington may be clear for this high on the shared borders. Mixed precipitation starts in eastern Nevada and goes into Utah and Arizona and parts of New Mexico. Then sweeps through eastern Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, and on to Iowa and Minnesota. Snow is in central Utah and most of Colorado and Wyoming and part of Montana. There is a large area of critical fire danger in southeast New Mexico and west Texas. Rain and thunder, that's this, yeah. Rain and thunderstorms cover up most of Texas up to the southeast Nebraska. The yellow lines indicate that severe thunderstorms has continued onto the Atlantic coast. More rain sweeps up from Tennessee to southwest Pennsylvania. Let's go this way. Then more mixed precipitation covers Pennsylvania and southern New York. Now for our 5-day forecast. Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high of 47 and a low of 27. Thursday, partly sunny with a high of 52 and a low of 31. Friday, partly sunny with a high of 58 and a low of 36. Saturday, mostly sunny with a high of 57 and a low of 35. Sunday, snow showers, 50% chance, high of 50 and a low of 30. Now for a climate change report. CO2 carbon dioxide is considered a greenhouse gas and is one of the principal causes of climate change. CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere as causes climate stability, the results of significant variations worldwide of moisture and hot cold temperatures, but the general climate trend is that the planet is slowly warming. Therefore, it is important to report the CO2 change. The following are the CO2 numbers in parts per million. Last week was 416.94. 2 weeks ago was 417.97. Last year is 414.34. 10 years ago is 392.22. 50 years ago is 327.18. Thanks to Dr. Peter Tans, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and to Mike McGee of the CO2.Earth Network for providing this information. Remember, you can help keep our kids in show on the air by buying a sponsorship. To become a sponsor, call 970-677-4119. That's 970-677-4119. Thank you. Now back to our news director.
And that's all, folks. That's the end of today's DCTV 4-H news program. This is your news director, Lynn. Good night, and thank you for watching.